What we do is we work with clients, suppliers to vendor to retailers, brick and mortar, where they sell in, and we help them understand whether or not they have opportunity to recover revenue across both supply chain and then off-invoice deductions through ARAP and then through chargebacks. So one of the things that we see that a lot of our clients have struggled with is retail has really changed. Back in the day, when you were a supplier to a retailer, they basically just asked for your lowest possible cost, and then there was no other charges that you would be hit with. But today, it's not just give us your lowest cost, it's also give us your lowest cost, invest in our data, buy retail media, and can invest in promotions as well. So there's a lot more ways that the retailers today are asking for you to partner with them. So in order to do that and continue to stay profitable, you got to make sure that every dollar that you have in trade that you're working on within that retailer relationship is working hard. And because the pressure has been felt by the retailers to be able to play across omni-channel, they've increased their cost to serve their customers as well, with having to open up new FCs. Maybe they're doing delivery from store, maybe they have a pickup option, all adding additional cost to their model. So they've been trying to make sure how are they most efficient and how are they collecting the funds so that they can offset their costs as well. And in doing so, they've added a lot of complexity into the supply chain compliance to make sure that their suppliers are shipping them in a way that's very efficient. And then they're making sure that they're collecting their damages, their returns, they're checking your invoicing to make sure you're billing properly. And that's where we come in. So at Vendormint, what we do is we specialize in auditing your supply chain compliance and your revenue across both your invoices through EDI, and then also your chargebacks with co-ops, et cetera, and post-audit. And just a few ways that we see this come to life is everybody's going to have a vendor agreement or a supplier agreement with retailers they're working with. And in that, it's going to outline different types of allowances that you've agreed upon within that retailer. You might be giving a cash discount, but you're requesting to be paid within a certain time period. One of the things that we look at as we're doing our audits is, are you actually being paid within a reasonable time of that time period you've agreed upon? And if not, are they still collecting those allowances? Those are opportunities to recoup some cash. Also, they have other types of allowances in there, like swell, which is for your damages. This is an agreement where you're saying, hey, I'll give you a percentage off of our invoice, knowing that we're going to have some returns coming into your store. And instead of charging us every time we have a return, just take it out of this allowance. We often see opportunities within that swell allowance where either the process at which it is agreed upon, many retailers will do a look back, and depending on that look back, they'll adjust your percentage. And sometimes there's an opportunity there where there could have been an operational issue that has caused your swell allowance to be artificially inflated, and we can help identify those opportunities to make sure that you're not paying an increased swell allowance. We're also looking at your overages and shortages. So every time you ship into a retailer, sometimes you don't get it perfect. Sometimes you accidentally short, and maybe sometimes you accidentally send too many units from what was actually ordered on the purchase order. And in those instances, each retailer has a different method of how they either take that off invoice or how they recoup those funds. Some don't pay your overage back at all. So we'll go and help and work with you on your overages and shortages to make sure that you're trued up. This is where we typically see a lot of opportunity. And within that, you can end up having supply chain compliance challenges where if your shortage was on items, you could end up, like Walmart has on time in full. If you end up shortage, but maybe that's not a real shortage, you could end up taking a 3% cost of goods penalty as well within their SQEP program, Supplier Quality and Excellence Program. So what we do here at Vendormint is we look across all of your chargebacks, your pricing opportunities, all of your off-invoice deductions to understand, are these being done correctly, or are they being done potentially incorrectly, and there's an opportunity to recover. So not only are we going to work with you on understanding, are there opportunities to recover money where maybe a retailer has made a mistake, but also there is going to be a number of times where you as the supplier will be making a mistake and causing unnecessary deductions. So we call those valid. And in those valid deductions, there's oftentimes process improvements that can be made inside your organization that can allow you to not have those deductions down the line. And so all of this is really important to make sure that you're maximizing your revenue within your retail partnerships so that you can continue to be a good partner and invest back into promotions and into retail media or into the data that they're asking you to purchase in order to continue to innovate for your customers. So that's a little bit about us. We would love to be able to speak with you. If you guys have any opportunities, feel free to reach out to us. You can book directly a meeting through vendormint.com, and I'll pass it back to Mark.
Awesome, Dennis. Really appreciate it. Again, yeah, just like these are such valid points that we're making here to the listeners here, that there's so much money I feel like there's still left on the table for sellers. Back in the day, like we're just discussing, like maybe 2012, 2013, it was like margins didn't really matter. It was just like the heyday. But now margins matter so much, and all these little things that we can do to drive our margins, drive our profits, is the things that we should be doing in our business. So, and that's one of the things I also talk to my clients about, and my users, is that I feel like the landed unit costs, the supply chain, is really the area that sellers have the most control over. We can still negotiate with the suppliers. We can still get better freight rates. We can still do all the things to drive our costs down. So we really should be paying attention to that. So that was awesome. Thank you, Dallas.
Yeah, Mark, one thing I would just leave real quick with you, but you made me think of this, that we see on average about 3 to 8% of total sell-in value in off-invoice deductions and chargebacks. So it's a meaningful amount that needs to be reviewed.
So what is the importance of taking control of your brick-and-mortar revenue during times of uncertainty and market volatility?
Well, I mean, taking control of your P&L is always going to be a benefit, especially during times of tariff. I mean, this is going to be an opportunity for you from a competitive standpoint, depending on how your competition is positioned, or for you to be able to push your relationship with your retailer to be able to gain potentially additional in-store space. But being able to have those dollars back that could be stuck in your supply chain or your off-invoice opportunities, you can reinvest that into cost to offset your tariff. And depending on the category and what your competition looks like in these stores, you might have a competitor that is more affected. And if that's the case, you might be able to spend those dollars in an opportunity in order to play offense. And maybe you're able to go on the offensive and lower your retails. Or if you're in an area where you're more affected, how do you leverage these dollars to play defense and make sure you don't get a competitor in the space that's able to beat you on price in the brick-and-mortar stores?
Yeah, what is the future of optimizing supply chains, maintaining retail supplier compliance?
So the future of supply chain compliance, I think what we're going to be seeing here is more and more retailers are actually rolling out compliance programs. So Target recently rolled out Perfect Order, which somewhat mimics the Walmart's SQEP and OTIF. And what this is going to look like is they're going to be looking at everything from the pallet you ship on to the shrink wrap to the label location. And so the future of compliance for supply chain is going to be not just did your product get there and get there on time, but it's going to be how did it arrive, and did it arrive in a fashion that the retailer has requested. And so if it's not, there'll be penalties that they're going to be tacking on along the way. So the retailer's really trying to make sure that their suppliers are making it as easy and efficient for them to handle the merchandise once they receive it as possible. And so the future of compliance is going to be making sure that you're good all the way across the board, not just from point A to point B.